хотел Джавелина всю российскую армию победить. Трофейщики хорошие трофейщики.
На носилке его.
Забираем.
Носилку. Давай, давай тут, там. Ногами вперед. Да. Ногами вперед.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my new video. So the clips I showed you at the beginning, these were trending on Telegram and TikTok and Instagram as well, so I thought I'd post it here. If YouTube causes any issues, what I might do is I might upload the uncut version to my Patreon so you can watch it there. If YouTube causes any issues, I'll cut it and I'll just keep the speaking part of the video. So you've seen like how a lot of these soldiers are carrying around javelins like it's gonna make a difference. One thing javelins don't do is they don't give you a lot of mobility. They're very, very heavy, so you're literally carrying them around. And don't forget, Russia has got loads of drones flying around and they can spot you for miles. They got satellite navigation, they got satellite imagery. Ukraine doesn't have the same. They got few drones flying around here and there, but they get shot down very easily by anti-aircraft missiles by Russia. So the drones flown by Ukrainians pretty much get shot down, but the drones flown by Russians, they do not get shot down. And then you're also fighting against a professional army as well, and you've seen by the clip, these Ukrainian soldiers have no chance. It doesn't matter if you think you're Rambo, you've seen these moves done in a Hollywood movie. They don't work in real life. And you've seen the clip where this guy is doing like 100 rolls thinking it's going to save him. And in the end, obviously, they arrest him. He's probably been shot a few times. They obviously take him on a stretcher and take him to a hospital or something. But you can see, all of these moves that you do in Call of Duty. You see these Hollywood movies where Rambo does the same thing. This is real life. It doesn't work. Not only do these javelins slow you down and slow your mobility, that you are spotted from a mile away. And when you are being shot by Russian soldiers, these javelins are not going to help you. They can be an advantage in certain situations, but they're also very much a hindrance as well. For these javelins to work, you gotta be able to control the battlefields. You gotta be able to control the sky. You gotta be able to control the battlefield. You must know where your enemy is. You must have very good comms. You must have everything in place for these to be working effectively. If you don't, then you are just sitting ducks waiting to be killed or taken prisoner. So I posted this earlier today, and basically this shows a phone captured from a Ukrainian POW, and you can see from the history what he's been googling and things like that. So most of the googles is like, why is javelin heating up, why is the javelin noisy, why it doesn't shoot, why it doesn't work. Then you got Stranger Things season 4. So obviously when they're dug in the trenches and they obviously don't have much to do, they are looking at Stranger Things season 4 online. So obviously good advertisement there for Stranger Things. But then he goes back to Javelin, how to use Javelin, not work. Then he's like, how to delete the web browsing history. And Javelin YouTube. So you can see that these soldiers, they're carrying around all these javelins, but they don't even know how to use them. Like I said, it's not really effective thing to use. It's not just about how to use them. Even if you use them, you need everything in place. You need air superiority, you need intelligence, you need good communications, you need to work as a team to, all of that is missing. You basically just got these conscripts, these guys who they've pulled out from the streets and given them a javelin and say, yeah, go ahead and use it. That's how it is. None of them have got any training. These guys are basically used as cannon fodder, and they're being killed like 500, 600 a day. And this is also confirmed by the Ukrainian ministry. They cannot, carry on going with these numbers. They cannot survive going along these numbers. No country can. So this is why, so many Ukrainian soldiers are dying. And I've seen this article here, and it says Kiev is losing up to 200 troops per day. It's a lot more than that, to be honest. A lot more. So this is what this guy is saying, an aide of Zelensky. Then you see this article here, and in this article he says they are losing somewhere between 600 and 1,000 a day, and this is a lot more accurate. And because you can see here. So what Russia is doing, they are hitting targets with high precision air-based missiles, and that's hit about 48 areas of manpower, and they have eliminated 117 nationals, 5 tanks, 6 artillery guns, 8 special vehicles, 1 ammunition depot, just by missiles itself. But then if you go further down, you will see here, missile troops and artillery have hit 231 areas of manpower. So these are artillery and other missile hits. 13 command posts, 14 foreign positions, and these attacks killed more than 300 nationalists. So you can see 170 above, 300 here. That's almost 500. The day before it was about 600. The day before is 500 again, because I do count all of these numbers in the Ministry of Defense. This week in itself, they have lost average of about 500 per day, and in 10 days, that's 5,000 that have died in 10 days. And that this is a real big number. This is not counting the amount of people that are injured. This is not counting the amount of people taken prisoner as well. And there is another article as well which I want to share with you. And you can see here, cases of desertion are growing amongst Ukrainian forces suffering significant losses in Russia's artillery onslaught, reports say. And where is the story where a few months ago they were saying the Russian soldiers were deserting the army, Russian soldiers are running away from the army, Russian soldiers are refusing to fight? You see all of these ridiculous stories in the Western papers. Now they're changing their tune, completely changing their tune. And you have to ask yourself, how stupid are these, people, that journalists who must think people are really dumb. The same journalists write ridiculous things a few months ago, now completely changing the tune and putting things on the other way around. It gets worse, and I was reading this actually, and not only are they saying that lots of Ukrainian soldiers are running away, they're also saying that report also shows that Russia has 40 times supply of artillery ammunition. They also have longer range. So do you remember a few months ago they were saying Russia's running out of missiles, Russia's running out of ammunition? Do you remember that a few months ago? Now they're completely changing the tune about ammunition as well. And he says our Western partners have given us 10% of what they have, explaining that Ukrainian is now dependent on Western donation of supplies. So when you are fighting in a war and you are a country and you're completely dependent on Western supplies, then you're screwed then, aren't you? Completely screwed. How do you expect to fight a war when you're completely dependent on the Western supplies? First of all, how is this Western supply gonna arrive to you? Tell me that, Einsteins. You know, there's no trains going to the east side of Ukraine. There's no trucks or cars going there, because any trucks or cars that are driving from the west to the east will immediately be noticed by Russia, and they'll be taken out easily. So having supplies is one thing. Having supplies delivered to the east where the fighting's going on in Donbass is another. So, you know, like I said, these journalists who have no idea how a real military works or how a war works, these idiots that basically studied journalism at school or college have become a bunch of twats, reporting on anything that the editor wants them to report on. They do no research by themselves. They don't go to the front line to see how the real war is going. They're probably working from their mum's basement, working from home, writing a lot of crap. And the editor tells them what to write. The editor says to them, listen, we can't have stories about Russia winning. You must write a story about Ukraine is winning. You must write a story about how Ukraine is destroying Russia, how Russia's soldiers are running away, how Russia's running out of ammunition, how Russia's running out of missiles. You must write these stories, otherwise you're fired, okay? And these stupid journalists are, yes sir, I'll do it, sir, I'll do whatever you say, sir. You know, journalism is dead. It's completely dead. And now you can see Ukraine is not in fashion anymore. You know, hundreds and thousands of people who had Ukrainian flags on their bio in Twitter and Instagram is gone now. You know, now you go around Instagram and you go around Twitter, you hardly see a Ukrainian flag anymore. The only person who's still got one is Ursula von der Leyen. She's the one that still got it, and I don't think that's going to stay there for long, I guarantee you. Also want to touch on this story where I reported yesterday that a couple of British servicemen, mercenaries, went to Ukraine and have been given the death penalty. And I did say probably they're not going to be given the death penalty. It's probably more as a publicity stunt. And again, I've seen this article today where Ukraine will swap prisoners to secure the freedom of British soldiers. So it looks like Ukraine will do some sort of prisoner swaps with Russia. It's not probably going to be one-on-one. They probably have to give like 20 or 30 for one soldier or something like that. Obviously, Russia will drive a very hard bargain. This is because you have, you know, Liz Truss. You can see her. It comes as Liz Truss, the foreign secretary. So basically, remember the time when she asked a lot of these mercenaries to go to Russia and kill themselves for Zelensky? She must be feeling really, really guilty right now. So you have Liz Truss basically speaking to the Ukrainian counterparts and basically asked them to leave no stone unturned to secure the release of the two men. So you can imagine Liz Truss calling these Ukrainians and begging to them, saying, please do whatever you can to get these guys released, because she obviously feels guilty, and if these guys basically die, then all basically blame is going to go to her, because she said, you know, it's fine for all of these British mercenaries to go there and kill themselves. So obviously she's got a major blame for all of this. So we'll see what happens. Chances are they probably will be released with some sort of prisoner swap of some sort, but it's not going to be one prisoner versus one prisoner. I think Russia will drive a very hard bargain, and they'll probably have to give up 10, 20 or even 100 prisoners for that one guy. So we'll see what happens. So I'm going to talk a bit about the economy, and you can see here the US fuel prices are surging because this is the summer, and this is the time when a lot of people drive their cars. They obviously want to visit friends in other towns, or they want to go on a holiday, or they want to drive around America and go on road trips and stuff. And look, those of you who lived in America, I mean, I lived in Atlanta, you will know that you can't go anywhere without a car in America. America was designed so everybody has a car. This was back in the day when America was absolutely rich in terms of its middle class. Everyone had a house, everyone had a job, everyone had a car. And those were the days when American cities were all designed so you basically need a car, you can drive wherever. So they didn't really focus much on infrastructure, on trains, for example. That's why America doesn't have any high-speed rails. You can't really travel on public transport. There are buses and stuff, but it's not very viable. These buses are basically once every hour or once every half an hour. Plus you got to wait in the really soaring heat in the bus stops. Plus, you know, there's a lot of dodgy people in these buses, homeless or druggies, and you know, you just don't know who you're going to bump into. So you need a car in America wherever you go. So this is why American fuel prices are going through the roof, absolutely going through the roof. And one other thing Americans love gas guzzlers. You know, there's cars which are V8 engines, V12s, they got pickup trucks. You know, American cars, they love big engines in America. The same car, you know, in Europe or in England, for example, you know, the fuel is much less. So in England, for example, my wife drives a 1.4 litre car. And, you know, when I was in America and I basically hired a car, and that car was like had a V6 engine in it, and that was an average car at that point. One of my favorite cars is the Ford Mustang, and obviously takes a lot of energy, takes a lot of fuel, but it's a very powerful car. But it's not sold in Europe or in UK because the fact is those cars take so much petrol. It's just not viable enough, and so it's not made for the European market. It's not made for the UK market. That car is only made for the US market. And so this is the problem, really. Not enough people are moving into electric cars in America because the infrastructure, again, is not there. There's not enough charging points in America. And also, there's question marks whether America can actually support the EV transition with its current power grid, because the power grid has not been made for EV cars, and America does not have enough power to power up EV cars, and that's a fact. They need to change a lot in terms of infrastructure before they can do that. So this is what I'm talking about. To improve the infrastructure and to basically improve the US power grid, they need to spend over 7 trillion. 7 trillion is going to cost them, and they don't have 7 trillion at the moment, especially the way the economy is going, especially with everything that's happening with inflation. And this 7 trillion cost was actually estimated like a year ago, but if you estimate it now with the current cost of inflation, the cost of raw materials and everything else, that will probably go up to 10 trillion easily. So it's not that easy to move into EVs. Plus there's another problem that America has as well. There's a huge amount of thefts and vandalism going on with EVs. So the charging points that charge up electric cars, the actual wire itself, people are stealing it. They are cutting it off, stealing it and selling it in the black market, because that particular piece is actually quite expensive. So this is the electric charging vehicle cable plus that electric port. So people are stealing this, and they cost up to around $200 or even more, depending on how if it's a Tesla one, for example, it costs much more. And you can see here, electric vehicle charging station theft, vandalism, collisions coming soon. Are you prepared? Cities with EV charging station are beginning to experience incidents of vandalism. Purchasing extended warranties will not cover these acts and will cost cities thousands of dollars. Theft and collision are also concerns cities will soon face. So people are stealing a lot of these charging cables. They're vandalizing a lot of EV stuff as well, EV charging points. And with the current issues with inflation, the cost of living, it's just going to happen even more. This is going to be another easy way for maybe a homeless guy or somebody who's desperate for money, will basically try and make money, and they'll cut these cables in the middle of the night and sell it off in the morning just for a quick hit. You just don't know really. And there is a lot of problems with EV, and I just don't think EV will take off in America. I mean, there are people with electric cars, but already they are complaining that there's not enough charging points. They're complaining that it takes too long to charge a car in America, because you need, in order for you to fully charge your car quickly, you need something called a level 3 charging point, and these charge your car very, very quickly. Unfortunately, there's only few and far between these charging points in American cities, and the ones who do have it, they have a big waiting list and a big queue, and it's really, really inconvenient for in terms of infrastructure to have it right now. Maybe in 10 years time, 20 years time, they might have the infrastructure and the facilities to do it, but right now America has a huge problem with EV, and because of that the prices are going up in oil, because a lot of people are put off by EV cars. So a lot of people haven't made that transition or don't want to make the transition, and a lot of them are stuck with these gas guzzling cars, and they've got no choice but to pay the oil. So this is not just happening in US, by the way. This is also happening in UK. You can see the cost has become absurd. UK motorists lament 100 a tank petrol. So the average price to fill up a car now has gone up to £100. This is for the first time in ages this has happened. My missus actually told me that 2 years ago it used to cost her £30 to fill up her car. Only £30 just to go from 0 to 100%. Now she says it costs her £110 to fill it up. So if you look at £30, times 2 is 60, times 3 is 90. Almost like 4 times it's gone up. 4 times in 2 years. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. So it's gone so bad in UK that healthcare workers are calling in sick because it's too expensive for them to travel or go to work. And it's not just healthcare workers. You can see from this article here, record UK prices risks a mass exodus of essential workers. Not just healthcare workers, but cab drivers, couriers, van drivers, people that have to pay to go to work. They'd rather call in sick or find another job where they can work from home rather than take their car to travel, because this is absolutely ridiculous. And with the current cost of living crisis that's going on, there is a huge problem happening around UK, and not just UK, the rest of the world. People are just running out of money. I was looking at the Financial Times, and it's basically saying that people's credit card usage has maxed out over this month, basically. So what it's saying is people are maxing out their credit cards, they're maxing out their borrowing, they're taking a lot of loans out just to make ends meet. And also a lot of people are getting released from their jobs as well. The jobless total over this month is actually twice the number of people who have been laid off this month compared to last month, and that's just going to increase. The reason for this is, you see the cost of living, the high gas prices. If you increase the gas prices, that means increases in inflation, because the cost of delivering goods, for example, so if you've got goods coming in from China, they come to the Dover port, for example. I'm just giving an example, it could be any other port. Then you've got to drive from that port to your supermarket, Asda in Manchester, for example. So you've got to counter in the cost of fuel to go from port to Manchester, or go from the port to London, for example. And if the cost of petrol has doubled, even tripled, or even quadrupled, don't forget diesel prices have gone even far higher up as well. And so if those prices have increased, that increase is going to be sent to the customers, because the businesses can't afford it, so they're going to have to increase their prices and let the customers pay. And this is what's happening. So inflation is going up, people have less and less money to pay for things. If you first pay for your rent, then you pay for food and you pay for heating, there really isn't much left in the pocket to pay for anything else. So this is why the UK economy is going to be suffering. That's why UK economy is going to be having a recession. The first thing people are going to be getting rid of are kind of non-essential services. For example, people will stop going to the cinema, people will stop go to restaurants and go to fancy meals or things like that. They will stop basically paying for Netflix, they will stop paying for Disney Plus. So all of these essential stuff will go. And the problem is, when you stop buying these essential stuff, and also they will stop buying, designer gear and designer clothes. So when you stop buying all of these essential stuff, it doesn't really drive the economy, because the UK's economy is very much service related, retail, service, and all of that. So if people stop going to, restaurants, and they rather basically make their food at home, if they stop buying stuff in retail, or they're basically, instead of buying expensive stuff, they're now saving their money on cheaper stuff, that means the economy is not making enough money in terms of taxes and revenues, and that money, there's going to be less money going to the government, which means the government has less money to spend. And this is why the economy is going to be in recession. The government is actually borrowed a lot, and you can see the borrowing has already reached 100 billion, and imagine the interest you have to pay on that 100 billion of borrowing. Currently, the UK's debt to GDP ratio is over 100%, which means the UK is more in debt than the amount of money it makes. So you can see here, the national debt for UK in total is 3.3 trillion. The GDP is 3.246 trillion in terms of GDP. So the debt is more than the GDP. So UK, it basically is in debt more than the money it makes, which means it's over 100%. But if you look at the external debt to GDP ratio, that's 287%, and that is much higher compared to all of these other countries, and much higher than any of the G7 countries. So UK is pretty much, SCREWED, screwed, very much so. And people don't understand how bad the UK is. It's not just debt to GDP ratio they have issues with. They have issues with Brexit. They have issues with COVID, and now they have issues with all of these ridiculous sanctions they've placed on Russia. So England is going to be hitting real rock bottom very, very soon, very soon. So because of all of these high costs of petrol, you can see the fuel thefts are rising in UK, and this is going to carry on rising as well. And think about it, if everybody goes to the fuel station and starts filling up their cars and driving off, there's only so much the police can do. They can't chase all of them up, and that petrol station will probably go bust. And I've seen people, especially around East London. So I heard a lot of young kids, what they do, they put these false number plates on their cars, behind and front. They put these fake ones on. They go to the petrol pump, they fill up their cars, and they drive off. And by the time the petrol station gathers all the evidence and uses the CCTV camera work, they send that details off to the police. The police do their investigations, and then they find out later on that the number plates were fake and it doesn't match the car. So all of that effort has gone to waste, and a lot of kids in East London, I've noticed, are doing this, and even my brother was saying that his friends are doing it as well. So it's happening a lot all over UK, and it's something that people can get away with easily. There's not enough manpower to basically deal with all of these thefts and stuff that's going on. It's not just fuel price thefts. There's thefts going on all over UK. There's people walking into shops and grabbing food because they don't have money to pay for food, so they're just grabbing food and walking out, grabbing essential items and walking out. There's only so much the police can do. And if you look at the state of America at the moment, America does not even pursue shoplifters anymore. If the shoplifters steal a certain value's worth, if it's under a certain value, they just don't even bother anymore. So that's why these homeless people in America, or people that are not very well off, or druggies, walking around shops in all over America, they know there's a limit, they know they're not going to be prosecuted, so they walk into the shops, grab what they want, and they just walk out again because they know they're not going to be prosecuted. And even if they get arrested by the police, what are they going to do? They're going to put them in jail, they're going to give them free food. They'll probably enjoy it rather than staying out basically in the crime-ridden streets. They'll be much safer inside the jail cell, given free food and all of that. I'm sure they will love it. So it's happening in England as well, and I'm sure it's happening all over Europe. If anybody of you are living in Europe, let me know how things are there. I can only tell you how things are like in UK because I live here, so I can give you my point of view. I'm going to go through a few more articles in UK. You can see the UK economy will grind to a halt and then shrink. Brexit is largely to blame for UK's 31 billion revenue loss. Politicians may find it difficult to ignore the role of Brexit in the UK's economical problems for much longer. You can see here, Brexit is largely to blame, with billions lost in Britain's trade and tax revenues in recent years. So like I said, Britain is having a three-pronged attack. They are losing money because of Brexit. They are losing money because all these ridiculous COVID stuff they've implemented. 93 billion it cost them for COVID. 93 billion with these ridiculous policies. They wasted 16 billion on some ridiculous app that doesn't even work. The NHS track and trace, it doesn't even work properly. They wasted on that. They wasted so much money on furloughs. A lot of companies which are doing fraud as well. So much money was wasted. 93 billion was wasted during COVID, and obviously they had to borrow all of that money, so somebody will have to pay all of that back. You can see there's rail strikes going on in UK as well. National rail strike could cost UK economy more than 90 million. So there's rail strikes going on in UK. Then you got Rishi Sunak wasting British taxpayers' money as well. You can see Sunak has cost taxpayers £11 on rate hit. So this guy doesn't know what the hell he's doing. He's not going to be affected anyway, so he doesn't care. UK economic growth will grind to a halt with 10% inflation. We are already on 10% inflation, even though it's not been reported. We are more than 10% inflation. I can guarantee you that. UK plans to burn billions in wasted pandemic protective gear. So again, they basically bought a lot of these protective gear for the pandemic, and now they're going to have to burn it all, and it's obviously cost them billions and billions to do. Again, a more waste of money. Stock markets tumble after inflation in the United States surges to highest level in more than 40 years, paving the way for a series of aggressive interest rate hikes. So the stock market all over US has been falling. I look at a lot of the stock markets as well. I do have shares in EV companies. Those of you who want to know kind of what I put my shares in, but I do have a lot of shares going into BYD. If anybody wants to talk to me about BYD, I can explain to you why I've put my shares in BYD. I know I've also put a lot of shares into NEO and a lot of renewables companies as well, because EVs and renewable companies are pretty much the future. There's going to be a huge growth in those industries. So if you haven't invested in renewables or EVs, I would suggest you do that now. because over the next few years you will see the whole world spending trillions and trillions on renewable energy, renewable sources. So if you haven't put any of your stocks and shares in that, do it now while it's still hot. Talking about the stock market crashes in America needs a separate program, but I'm just going to give you a brief summary. There's a lot of companies who are losing stock, especially entertainment businesses. I'm going to focus on businesses such as Disney, Netflix, for example. Netflix has lost 70% of its stock value. Netflix is blaming Russia for it because they pulled out of Russia. It's got nothing to do with Russia. It's basically all down to their woke programming, the absolute trash programming that Netflix has been doing over the years. And they went completely woke, and people are just sick of it. So why should you basically pay for a service which is completely woke? And people are fed up of having this woke virtue signaling shoved down their throats when they're watching a TV program. People watch TV or watch a movie to escape reality. They don't watch it to basically get all of these identity politics rammed down your throat. It's absolutely ridiculous. So Netflix has lost 70% because people are just fed up. Same thing has happened to Disney. Disney has lost so much stock right now. I mean, I think they've lost more than 50% or maybe even 60% of the stock in the last few months alone. And Disney is another company which has gone completely woke, and they are losing money left, right and centre, and I just don't know how they can survive. During the pandemic they lost a lot of money because a lot of their theme parks had been closed. A lot of their cruise liners were closed. A lot of their hotels were closed during pandemic. And then what happened was that they make much money with all of these really woke Marvel films like Eternals, lost money. Shang-Chi lost money. Black Widow lost money. They made all of these ridiculous woke films, and people are just turned off. People are just fed up of bloody Disney. And you got Disney Plus with all these woke shows, and the latest woke show is Obi-Wan. I don't know if anyone is a Star Wars fan or watches anything about Star Wars, but they've made that show completely woke. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's really sad to watch. It's like Last Jedi all over again. Basically they made Obi-Wan into a useless bag of pants, and basically it's a bait and switch where you have female characters, even a 10-year-old character doing better than him, telling him what to do and making him look stupid, while basically the females run the show in Disney. It's basically MCU all over Disney, including Marvel, including Disney. You have all of these female characters coming out in the latest MCU Marvel films. Every single male character has been replaced by a female. You have She-Hulk. You have Iron Man, who's going to be replaced by Ironheart. You have Clint, which is Hawkeye, replaced by a female Hawkeye. You have, basically so many good male characters in the MCU growing up in phase 1, phase 2. All of them have been replaced by females. All of them, every single one. I just can't believe how woke Marvel has gone. And when I watched Doctor Strange as well, again, that was so woke, absolutely ridiculous. I'm not surprised that Disney is losing lots of stock. People are just fed up of it. And like I said, when people are struggling with money, when people are struggling with finances, the first thing to go is entertainment. So people will cut off things like Netflix, people will cut off things like Disney, they'll stop going to the Disney parks, they will stop buying Disney products. So that stuff will hit the market first. So that's why I'm not surprised these companies are losing so much stock, because people, not only are they fed up of all this woke nonsense, but these are the first things people cut when they're having budget problems. So Russian airspace closure to most of the West is costing not just their neighbours, it's also costing the EU millions, because you have to look at the cost of fuel prices rising, which means the cost of airplanes flying from one destination to the next rises even more. There's a big problem in UK where a lot of cheap flights like Ryanair and things like that, they have been cancelling flights last minute. And they've been doing that over the past few weeks, and they've been blaming saying, oh, we don't have enough staff and things like that. It's nothing to do with the staff. It's all down to the petrol cost, because a lot of people who book these cheap flights, they book it months ago when it's cheap. For example, Ryanair, if you book Ryanair flights 6 months or 9 months ago, or even a year ago, they're like very, very cheap. They're like £2.99 or £1.99. And by the time your flight comes, you realize Ryanair basically cancelled the flight because it's not cost effective for them. Because if you have a flight full of customers who've bought tickets for £2.99, £3.99, or even £4.99, if they booked it 9 months ago, a year ago, and your petrol is costing you thousands, it's not really cost effective. So what Ryanair has done recently, or what they're doing, is they're cancelling the flight because they're saying, oh, we have a shortage of staff, we can't run the flight. And that's what's happening, not just to Ryanair, but it's happening to cheap flights all over Europe. Flights are being cancelled left, right and centre. And it's just costing them more. It's costing them more because they can't fly over Russia. And you've seen how big Russia is as a country. If you can't fly over Russia to get from Europe to Asia, then you have to reroute or stop in another airport somewhere. It costs these airlines so much money, millions and millions. And I'm going to see a lot of these airlines going bust this year or next year, because don't forget, a lot of these airlines were basically down during the pandemic. There was no air flights going on around the world, and so a lot of these airlines were grounded. They weren't making any money. So a lot of them have been suffering. They've been taking a lot of loans out, and now they have to pay more for fuel. Now they have to pay more to travel around Russia. And the only country that's going to be benefiting from this is China, right? Because China has recently released their own version of Boeing and Airbus, the C919, and I believe the last few days they've done a test flight on the flight. So China is going to be the only one that's going to be benefiting from this, because what they're going to do, they're going to be replacing all the Boeing planes and Airbus planes around China, and there's hundreds and hundreds of airports in China. What they're going to do is domestically they're going to run their own domestic flight program, and there's such a big demand for airplanes in China, and I think somebody estimated between 1 and 2 trillion it's going to cost them to basically get more airplanes. But this is China's own airplanes, so all of this cost is just going to drive their own economy. They don't have to buy it from Boeing, they don't have to buy it from Airbus, so they're not dependent on American and EU planes, so they have their own industry. And seems like China's going to be the only one that's going to be benefiting from this. I'm going to make a separate video on this, so I'm not going to talk much about it. Let's move on for a bit. Saudi Arabia to cut oil supplies to China. So I've not reported this, but a few days ago Saudi Arabia have increased their oil prices to Asia, and this includes India and China. And this oil price, they have not increased it for America. They have only increased it for Asia, basically. So countries like India, countries like China will have to pay more for oil from Saudi Arabia. So nobody really knows why Saudi Arabia has done this. They haven't increased the prices for EU countries and American countries. Some would say that within Saudi Arabia they still kind of listen to America's politics. There's still people running the show behind the scenes. Basically America could have threatened Saudi Arabia as well. So today I see this article, Saudi Arabia to cut oil supplies to China. The moves comes as China increases imports of discounted oil from Russia. And so obviously this is a bit suspect, definitely is very, very suspect. But yeah, of course, China is buying more and more oil from Russia. And if EU countries are not going to buy from Russia, then Russia will sell it to China, and Russia will sell it to India. And maybe Saudi Arabia has been quite upset about that, so they've been increasing their prices to Asian countries, and now they're going to cut all the supplies to China and obviously sell them to EU instead, or America instead. So obviously Saudi seems like they're playing on the fence, and they're doing everything they can to make as much money and profit as possible, which makes sense because they are obviously a business, so they were going to want to make as much money. However, all the EU and US and Saudi are doing, all they are doing is pushing Russia and China together. So today I saw this article: fanfare as first major road bridge connecting Russia and China opens. So what you have here is the first of many infrastructure projects going from Russia to China and China to Russia. So what all of this has been doing, everything that's happening around the world, all these sanctions, China and Russia are fast tracking infrastructure between the two countries, and they have one of the longest border in the world today, longest border lines in the world. I mean, look at the size of China, look at the size of Russia. So you can imagine there are huge borders between the two countries. Then you've got Mongolia in the middle as well, separating them. But you also got the east and west side of Russia, and same with China, with borders with each other. So what Russia and China have been doing, they have been increasing the infrastructure between the two countries. There's already many train lines going between the two countries, road lines, and there's many more coming over the next few years. Trillions and trillions are being spent on this. There's a Belt and Road scheme that is going through Russia as well, all throughout Russia. High-speed rail going from China to Russia and into Europe. So there's a lot of infrastructure happening. So what this means, if there's infrastructure, what this means, it becomes easier for China and Russia to trade, and this means Russia can sell oil and other raw materials to China much easier. So it'll be easier and cheaper for China to buy oil from Russia. It can come through rail, it can come through road, many other ways. It can come through plane, it can come through ship. So they have many options available, and plus all of these Russian oil will be discounted. China was also buying a lot of discounted oil from Iran as well, don't forget. So this is also why maybe Saudi Arabia is quite angry with China. And Saudi will still make money. They're selling it for a premium rate. They're also selling it to EU. They're also selling it to America. If you're an oil-making country, you can't lose. There'll always be buyers. That's why Russia is not going to lose. There are always going to be buyers. There's going to be China. And it's going to be much easier for Russia to sell to China, especially with all of these infrastructure projects coming into effect. So the supply lines between the two countries are going to be increasing over the next few years, and you will see a lot more trade happening between Russia and China. And people are saying already trade has reached 200 billion this year, and it's going to go up to 300 billion next year. And it's going to keep going up and up over the next few years, and it's all down to the shared infrastructure that they are building together. So Russia and China are being pushed together to be much more. So now we're coming up to the idiot of the day story. The idiot of the day today goes to Lloyd Austin, the US Defense Secretary of Defense rather. And he had a recent meeting today with the Defense Minister Wei Fengye, doing a face-to-face, and this basically end up being like fireworks. And this reminds me of the Anchorage moments where Blinken got absolutely destroyed. So same right now, Lloyd Austin got absolutely destroyed in this meeting face to face, and the defense minister from China basically used such harsh language I've never seen any Chinese use before. And you can see here, China will not hesitate to start a war and smash to smithereens any efforts to make Taiwan independent. And he said that in front of Lloyd Austin's face, and I can imagine Lloyd Austin's face how he felt. I'm sure he's never been spoken to like that before. And you can see the kind of language that the Chinese are using. We do not hesitate to start a war, and we're going to smash you to smithereens. Things like that. Chinese have never used this kind of language before, and they are obviously very angry because of US actions recently recently they've agreed to sell more arms to Taiwan. They are pushing for Taiwanese independence. And recently Biden basically went to Japan and South Korea and said that US will help Taiwan if there's ever a war between the two countries. So he kind of blurted that out. And so this is the first time the Americans have met the Chinese face to face since then. And Defense Minister, as Defense US Secretary of Defense, he basically got blasted by the Chinese, and it was quite funny to watch. And there's a clip of Lloyd Austin walking out the meeting looking really angry. So you can imagine, how he was feeling. So he was kind of felt. He probably felt like the idiot of the day. So basically all of these actions that the Americans have been doing the past few months, including Biden, Lloyd Austin was the idiot who basically took the blast directly face to face from the Chinese because of it, and I'm sure he was not happy at all. So this was part of his Asian trip, and this Asian trip Lloyd Austin is doing has not been successful. He was trying to round up a lot of the countries to be against China, and what he's found is he hasn't found any countries to be against China, apart from Japan and South Korea, which are vassal states of the United States and poodles. Apart from them, every other country was in support of China and said, you know what, don't get us involved, basically do your own thing. So his trip has completely failed, and he also got blasted by the Chinese defense minister as well. So the idiot of the day goes to him. The second idiot of the day, and the final one, goes to this article. Putin's guards collect his poo on trips abroad and take it back to Russia. So this was reported by the Metro. And they're saying that every time Putin goes to the toilet, they collect his poo and basically put it in a bag and take it home, because they don't want people to, they don't want scientists to identify his poo and find out if he's got any diseases or if he's got cancer or he's about to die, etc. So first of all, this story is laughable, and if you're a scientist or a doctor and if you're reading this, you realize what a BS article this is. Because first of all, when you go to the toilet and you basically have a poo, right, and you flush the toilet down, and then you walk off, and if anybody comes in to basically do some swabbing and DNA swabs after you, basically you will realize that all of that is contaminated, because you're not the only person using that toilet, right? There's hundreds and hundreds of other people using the toilet every single day, and that toilet is contaminated. If you have one person using it, then it's fine, you can identify that person. But if you have hundreds of people and you're using a public toilet, there is no way you can identify from that strain one person and say clearly that that person has got cancer, or that person's got this disease. That toilet is infected with hundreds of germs from different people. Loads of people have been sitting on it, loads of people have been using it. So again, anyone that knows science, anyone that has been worked in a lab before will know that that crime scene is completely irrelevant, and this article is completely irrelevant. It's just a BS article. I don't know how people get away with writing these ridiculous articles. It's just total BS, and I'm just sick of it, guys, absolutely sick of it. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the show. That's all I have time for today. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you in the next video. And don't forget to like, share, subscribe. You can join my Patreon, it'll be amazing. Or you can buy me a coffee, that'll be even more amazing. So take care for now, and I'll see you soon, guys. Take care.